The murder of 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Iryna Zarutskaya in the United States is at the center of a political confrontation. President Donald Trump recorded a special address. Attorney General Pam Bondi stated that federal charges have been brought against the attacker. He could face a life sentence or even the death penalty. Meanwhile, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson accused leading American media outlets of covering up this story. Why has this issue taken on such a pronounced political tone? In fact, TSN's correspondent in the United States, Olga Koshelenko, will explain in detail.
23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Iryna Zarutskaya was returning home from work around 10 o'clock in the evening on a commuter train in Charlotte, North Carolina. Sitting behind her was 35-year-old African-American DeCarlos Brown. The investigation established that the attacker and the victim did not know each other, but he pulled a knife from his pocket and suddenly inflicted 3 wounds on the young woman, resulting in Zarutskaya's death. Although all this happened back on August 22nd, the surveillance footage from the train was released last weekend. It caught the attention of Donald Trump. The president first made a separate post on Truth Social, where he called the attacker mentally ill. The man has indeed been diagnosed with schizophrenia. The police have detained him 14 times for various offenses. The last time he was released was in January. On Tuesday, the president recorded a separate video from the Oval Office, holding portraits of Zarutskaya and Brown in his hands.
Here is a photograph, and here is a photograph of the woman, a beautiful young girl who never had any problems in her life.
An FBI special agent, barely containing his emotion, told the briefing what Zarutskaya was like, a refugee from Kiev who, together with her family, fled the war to the United States.
Iryna settled into our community. She made friends and immediately found a job. On the very first day she was allowed to work, when she received her work permit, she found a job that same day. She worked at a senior center, worked at a pizzeria, and took care of animals. She was building her young life. She recently moved in with her partner.
In addition to a psychiatric diagnosis, the attacker has a long record of offenses, from domestic violence to armed robbery and breaking into other people's homes. He was detained. Carlos Brown is currently in custody. The day before federal charges were brought against him.
The maximum penalty for this federal crime is life imprisonment without a possibility of parole, or the ultimate penalty of the death penalty for this grave offense.
But in this seemingly straightforward story, a political subtext has emerged. Media outlets close to the Republicans and even Speaker of the House Mike Johnson accused pro-democratic media of deliberately keeping quiet about the murder case of the Ukrainian refugee.
What amazes me is that if you only read the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other leading publications, you won't learn about Iryna's shocking story. For some reason, many news outlets refuse to cover this. Axios shamelessly claims that this is, and I quote, fuel for the MAGA agenda.
In recent months, for Donald Trump, it really has been all about fighting crime in the streets. Moreover, according to Trump, most of the crime is concentrated in cities run by his political opponents, the Democrats. In Charlotte, where Zarutskaya was killed, the mayor is a Democrat. Previously, Trump deployed federal forces to supposedly liberate major cities like Washington and Chicago from crime.
We cannot allow criminal elements to continue spreading destruction and death across our country. We must respond with strength and determination. We must be as tough as they are. That's the only thing they understand.
Trump claims that he has already defeated street crime in the capital. He has repeatedly said that people used to be afraid to go out on the streets in Washington, even though the crowded streets and venues suggested otherwise. But to back up his words, the president, together with his closest associates, had dinner at a respectable restaurant near the White House the previous evening. From Washington in the United States, Olga Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN on Papstville, Marathon. United News.
A gruesome murder in Vinnytsia region. In the city of Sharhorod, 2 teenagers died on their way to school. A passerby discovered the bodies of 10th and 11th grade students yesterday morning on one of the streets. Preliminary reports indicate that they suffered stab wounds, including to the neck. The children died while receiving medical assistance. The police have already detained a suspect who may be involved in the murder. It is known that the suspect is 23 years old. According to the prosecutor's office, he is the boy's former teacher. Investigators are working to determine the motives for the crime and other circumstances of the tragedy.
The boys arrived by school bus to attend classes at the Lyceum in Sosnivka, but they were on their way to the hospital to get medical certificates. And then the perpetrator, a local resident, an English teacher, and a young man caught up with them And that's when the tragic event unfolded. He was employed at the very same school as an English instructor, a position he had held for some time. Throughout the academic year, there had been a series of underlying issues and various inconsistencies that had surfaced within the school environment, creating a noticeable tension and disruption. Apparently, it was on this basis that the tragedy occurred. He was dismissed from his job back in March, and the school principal was also dismissed because there were certain legal violations, so we let them go. But from March until this very day, he had not been employed anywhere at all, and now he has indeed done precisely what he has quite done.